Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am Brother Wazik Ved, and today we will be refuting another video posted by Capturing Christianity, where Cameron says that this one verse in the Quran can supposedly destroy and refute all of Islam. Let's see if this is true.
So I've been studying Islam for a few months now, and I came across a verse that, no joke, by itself refutes Islam. And before you click away from this video thinking that this is just going to be like another low-level polemical video against Islam, think again. This verse that we'll be looking at today has very serious issues at the scholarly level. That's the level that we'll be looking at today. So if you're ready for that, buckle up. And if you're a Muslim, I want you to watch this entire video. Before we get to the verse, let me back up a second and just tell you a little bit of the background. So I was originally looking for verses in the Quran that discuss the Trinity, just to like kind of see what it says. I'm a Trinitarian. Does it refute my beliefs? That's when I came across Surah 5. Surah 573 says, "They disbelieve those who say God is the third of three, but there is no deity except the one God. If they do not refrain from what they say, a painful torment will befall those among them who disbelieve." So right off the bat, this verse seems to get the Trinity like wrong. Like it seems to be critiquing something like tritheism. So basically like polytheism.
So here, Cameron tries to say that his Trinity belief is monotheistic and not polytheistic. Clearly, it is polytheistic. They worship three different beings with the excuse that it is just one and the same. Each of those three beings have different attributes and different minds, meaning they cannot be the same being. The Son said in John 14:28 that he is lower or the Father is greater than him, and in Mark 13:32 it says that only the Father knows the hour, meaning that the angels, the Holy Spirit, and the Son do not, making the Father greater in power and strength and knowledge than the others. So each of these are different with different attributes. In John 20:17, the Son says that the Father is his Lord. He says that his Father and the Father of the people are the same. He says that the God of him and the people are the same, meaning he has a God who is the same as the one for the people, meaning he is also not divine and he is a human. So the burden of proof is on him to prove that it is not polytheistic, which he cannot, obviously.
It's not actually attacking the Trinity. Look back at the verse here. It says that the disbelievers say Allah is the third of three. Third of three what?
The third of three refers to the Trinity.
The next sentence tells us there is no God except one God. So then the verse is saying that Allah is not the third of three gods, which is a rejection of tritheism. Okay, so this verse isn't actually attacking the Trinity, it's attacking a straw man. Okay, but I want to be as charitable as possible. Let's just give this verse the benefit of the doubt. And also, some scholars argue that this verse isn't even attacking a specific model of the Trinity. It's just trying to like target the view generally. Now, personally, I find that view kind of implausible, but again, let's just give them the benefit of the doubt here that this verse isn't straw manning the Trinity. Good. Let's go ahead and keep reading. Verse 74, "Will they not repent to God and ask his forgiveness? God is forgiving and merciful." And then we get to verse 75, which is what this video is about. "The Messiah, son of Mary, was only a messenger, before whom other messengers had passed away, and his mother was a woman of truth. They both used to eat food. Note how we make clear the revelations to them, then note how deluded they are." The part of verse 75 that's so problematic to the point that I'm convinced it actually refutes Islam is the part where it says they both ate food. The next line makes it clear that this is intended as some kind of like argument against a particular view held among Christians during the time of Muhammad.
This statement is trying to imply that Mary and Jesus were human, because God does not require food, does he? No, he's almighty, he's all-powerful, omnipotent, omniscient. He doesn't require any food, which is what humans require, as humans don't have unlimited strength. Because it's mentioned in chapter 6 verse 14 that God feeds everyone and does not require to be fed.
That's what the rest of this video will be focused on. I'm going to give 3 possible interpretations of this verse, then go through and show how each possibility has damning consequences for Islam. And again, I'll be appealing to contemporary scholarship to make my case. So as I say, the line, "they both ate food," is supposed to refute something, right? The next line sort of triumphantly states that this makes something clear, but the question is what? What is it refuting? What is so clear after we understand that Jesus and Mary ate food? As I say, there are really only three options that exist in the literature. Before we get to the options, we should note that this verse kind of puts Jesus and Mary side by side, almost as if they're like equally involved in the same theological issue. So the verse basically wants to point out something it thinks that both of them, Jesus and Mary, have in common. And the fact that the same argument is used against both Jesus and Mary, they both ate food, implies an equation between the two, which is kind of strange to begin with in the first place. But in any case, if the Quran is critiquing Christian beliefs, it seems to be saying that whatever theological error applies to Jesus also applies to Mary. So let's take a look at the interpretive options before us. I'll also quickly note that I won't really be arguing which interpretation is correct because they all face extremely serious problems. All right, option 1, Jesus and Mary are both members of the Trinity. That's option 1. Option 2, Jesus and Mary are equally divine. Option 3, Jesus and Mary are both incorruptible. Now, if you've never heard that term before, it just means like immune to bodily decay, but I'll be breaking that down a little bit further as we get to that section in just a couple minutes, so stay tuned.
I don't see any of these three interpretations as correct at all, because no verse in the glorious Quran says that Mary is part of the Trinity. No verse says that Jesus and Mary are both equally divine, and no verse says that they're both incorruptible. So I don't know where they're getting any of these interpretations from. All it is trying to address is those people who did worship Mary, because we know that certain people do, and many did. Then he says that no one ever did. Okay, the Catholics, they do. They bow to her, and they ask her for intercession, which we see as worship, as they could just ask God to have her intercede. Why not that? And many argue, no, 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 no. They do not do that. They do not worship her. They just revere her, which we disagree with. But even if I agree with them, for argument's sake, there were people, like the Coloridians, who did in fact worship her. And this was in Arabia, close to where this revelation was revealed.
Then we get to problem B. The verse's logic is completely flawed here. The argument, they both ate food, is meant to refute their being part of the Trinity, but how exactly does that work? Like, Christians have always taught that Jesus, as fully God, chose to take on human flesh and live as a man. This included him being able to eat, to sleep, and experience human needs. There is absolutely nothing inconsistent about a divine being who contingently takes on a human body. Indeed, if one thinks that God is omnipotent, then one must admit that he can assume a body and act through it if he wants to. And in fact, that's just what God did, according to Christians. Christians believe that Jesus pre-existed the incarnation and contingently assumed a human body like ours. Christians have consistently emphasized this aspect of Jesus' humanity. So in short, eating food does not rule out divinity at all.
This is a terrible argument, because he's trying to say that because God can do anything, that means that he will do anything, which is totally false, because there are certain attributes of him, certain descriptions of him, which if he becomes a man and acts like a human being, it contradicts them. And even if we take his argument that because he can do anything, that he will do anything, then can't he also make up rules and regulations and prohibit certain things and certain descriptions of God, that he made this book which says that he does not incarnate, which says that he is not a man, which says that he would not eat food? Because if he can do anything, then he can also do that, which contradicts your idea, which contradicts your beliefs.
So if we go with option 1, we're left with a double failure here. A, no Christians actually historically believed Mary was a co-member of the Trinity. And then B, they ate food doesn't disprove divinity or a contingent incarnation in any way.
The statement that they ate food, as I already addressed, is implying that they are not divine and they had weaknesses. They needed food to survive, just like we do. The Almighty does not require that.
By now, you might be thinking, like, surely the third option has to be better than the first two, right? Like, after all, the first two interpretations fail on multiple levels. This final interpretation suggests that Surah 575 targets a belief that both Jesus and Mary possessed incorruptible bodies during their time on earth, meaning that they were immune to any form of bodily decay.
The argument doesn't say that they are incorruptible, it says that they were human beings, not divine. He acts like this is the only refutation that the book gives, or that God gives. There are many different ways which we can disprove that the Prophet Isa alayhi salam was divine. Many ways. This is just one argument.
The Quran's argument, they both ate food, would thus imply that their bodies were like any other humans, naturally subject to decay. Sounds kind of interesting, right? Not so fast. So let's actually first break down what incorruptibility actually means. So in Christian terminology, incorruptibility means that a body avoids decay either fully or partially after death. Now, while Christians generally believe that Jesus was incorruptible post-resurrection, like his post-resurrection body was incorruptible, there were certain groups, like the Julianists, that took it a lot further. They suggested that Jesus' body was not just free from decay after the resurrection, but was also immune to it during his earthly life, a obviously controversial stance that also caused heated debates within Christianity. So to this group, to the Julianists, Jesus' incorruptible body was a sign of his divinity, a way of sort of preserving his holiness even while he was physically alive. But what about Mary? So historically, from a historical perspective, Christians did venerate Mary and they believed that her body was preserved after her death, yet they did not believe that her body was incorruptible while she was alive. For Byzantine Christians, the group of Christians that would have been around during the time of Muhammad, Mary was fully human during her earthly life, experiencing life's frailties as any other person would. It was only after her death, or at least they believed, that her body was shielded from decay. This belief upheld Mary's humanity while also honoring her special role as Jesus' mother. Unlike the Julianist views about Jesus, we have no evidence that anyone claimed Mary's earthly body was inherently free from decay. Now, here's the issue, okay? So if Christians at that time believed Mary's body was ordinary while she was alive, then the Quran's argument about they both ate food doesn't even touch on the genuine Christian doctrine. It's once again arguing against a straw man. But so how can we be so sure that there were no Christians at the time that believed in Mary's incorruptibility during her earthly life? Well, I actually consulted scholars on this very question. So Dr. Klaus von Stach, who is the co-author of Mary in the Quran, clarified in correspondence that no primary evidence exists to support the idea that Mary's body was considered incorruptible.
He goes on to refuting these three arguments, which none of them matter, as none of them are correct. So there's no point in watching any of this.
1. If Islam is true, the Quran wouldn't strawman Christian beliefs or endorse bad arguments. Premise 2. The Quran does both in Surah 575. Conclusion, therefore, Islam is not true. So, to the Muslims that are still watching this video, which premise in my argument is false? The logic in it is actually airtight. If you can't tell me which premise is false, then you have to accept the conclusion. Islam is not true. But you know what is true? Christianity.
Since I have refuted this argument, I can proudly say that this video is what is false and not our belief. And his faith, unfortunately, is false, and he didn't even prove it's true. And I pointed out many stuff which make it false. Corruption, contradictions, unfulfilled prophecies, scientific errors, logical fallacies, immoral statements. I don't know what else is needed to prove that his faith is false. Any suggestions or any arguments? Jazakallahu khairan to everyone who is watching. May Allah bless all of you and guide the non-Muslims and protect the Palestinians, the Lebanese, the Syrians, and everyone around the world. Ameen. And Jazakallahu khairan to all the support given in the last video. And remember, Cameron is a liar. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.